Chairman of the Fact-Finding Committee joins us on the program this morning, retired Major General Nicholas Rogers. Thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. Quite a voluminous report you submitted right there to the governor. How are you hoping that this report will make a difference to the situation of conflict in Plateau State?
Thank you very much. The report is actually very comprehensive, so it will be the political will of the governor and the people of Plateau to implement the report that has been submitted to them. If they do that honestly and sincerely, it will go a long way to providing the needed peace and enabling environment on the Plateau.
How jarring was it for you to find that 12,000 people had lost their lives over the period of 2001 to 2025? That's a period of about 24 years in our country, in conflicts that some of them have been low level, some of them have been, rather very well known. There's been a conflagration of sorts. But how shocked were you to find that this number of people had lost their lives in some of these conflicts?
It's very sad, very, very sad that things like this happen in our own country. And people don't even care about what is happening in all these states. It's not just only in Plateau State, but across most of the states where there's violence, there have been a series of killings. And I tell you that this figure that I will give you is only the recorded figure given. I'm certainly sure that the figure is more than this. And the same thing happens across all our states where there are conflicts. So there is need for us to develop a very good mechanism of handling conflicts, reducing the carnage and finding solutions and trying to live together as one. These are the basic things. And then trying to see how we can reposition the security agencies, the military security agencies and other organizations towards providing the needed security. There will always be issues of security lapses here and there, but you must prepare your military security agents to be able to tackle such security agents. But when I hear at times people say there's war against insurgents, I always ask myself, who has declared the war? The government has not declared any war against any insurgents that I know. Because if war is declared, the element of state power will come to play. But here, what we see is that most often than not, is security agencies, the military is allowed to carry out kinetic effort in trying to solve problems that are beyond military. The non-kinetic aspect is very important. The critical point of political leadership is very important. We must provide the leadership that is required across board, from sub-national level to the central government. There must be something has to be done to check these incessant killings and destruction of lives and property. Otherwise, we wake up one morning and discover that there's no Nigeria.
It's truly a very shocking situation. Do you want to speak to your methodology? You had the onerous task of doing this within a period of 4 months. Were you the one that picked the 4 months, or that's the period within which you had to work? And what methodology did you have to employ?
Well, the committee was inaugurated and was given 2 months to do the job. But along the way, we discovered that 2 months will not be enough, so we asked for an extension and we were given 1 month extra. So we actually spent 3 months doing this job. The methodology employed first was to have a talk with the general stakeholders in the Plateau State across all board. Then we had a meeting with all the heads of security agencies in the state and local government areas. We have a talk with all the traditional institutions, all of them headed by the Gwangwa Jos. We had discussion with youths across the Plateau State. One of the problems we observed was the role of the youth across the country, because the youth are the ones that carry out either reprisal attacks or attacks. So we were doing that, and then we also have to go out to the various communities that were affected, to truly talk to the people, engage the people, ask questions, and find out what has been happening, and then to give us good information as to what they know and why this crisis has continued to elapse. So we did a lot of consultation, town hall meetings, and then going around the whole 17 local government areas of Plateau State, and it was really revealing.
All right, General Rogers, let's take a look at that report in itself. Just so we can find out from you, does the report contain suggestions on how to end this crisis? General Rogers, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right. I said, does that report contain suggestions on how to sort out this particular problem, whether it's in the short long?
Yes, we have three folds. Those that be carried out by the local governments, sub-national level, those that be carried out by the state government mainly, and then by the federal government. Because there should must be federal intervention in Plateau. If we are going to make progress, the federal government must intervene in putting certain things in place and providing succor to the various communities that have been destroyed, and then rebuild confidence of the people across board. So we did that, and I hope that those concerned will be able to take decisions on the recommendations made.
I mean, I was wondering if those were recommendations that you can share with us. Are there things you can share with us on this program that you recommended, just so we can keep tabs on them and see if any of them are being, implemented? I think we've kind of lost. Okay, General Rogers, if you can hear me, I was wondering if those are suggestions that you can share with us here on the program.
Yeah, maybe some of the recommendations I will make was for the state government to carry out a surgery of some of its laws, the state laws, that can incriminate cattle rustling, illegal mining, destruction of farmlands without options of fine, so that people can learn lessons, because the criminal justice system administration here is very, very weak. Where somebody commits a crime and is given a bail or a fine of maybe 10,000 naira. So he pays that from his pocket and walks away, and then continue to threaten people around. That was suggested, and we suggested that the state governor should liaise with the Ministry of Defense and the President to see if more military can be established in Plateau State, particularly around the Bokos, Mango, Riom general area, because these are porous areas with critical issues always. We also suggested that the issue of ranching in the 3 senatorial zone will start petty projects on ranching where people can do their ranching and agriculture in a very massive, because the land injustice is massive, and then they could do that. We also suggest that the federal government should come to the assistance of the people that were displaced, and then so that they can have some succor.
Okay.
We also suggested that the military and other security agencies should be looked into with a view of providing technology for them and logistics to enable them to do their job, because in some parts of the state, the terrain, the topography and the terrain is terribly not easy for operations. So these are some of the suggestions we made.
And
there were many suggestions.
Yes, but very, very pertinent suggestions here. I wanted to get your thoughts on what other communities, other states. I had mentioned it earlier in the beginning of the program. Some communities, not just in the Northwest, in places like Katsina and Sokoto, we're hearing about how communities are coming up with some kind of arrangement with their oppressors, whether they are bandits, terrorists, whatever, the criminals, and coming up with some kind of arrangement
on how they can work together and so that peace can, reign in their region. Is that something that you think about? Is that something you support, or are you, like many other people, totally against any kind of negotiations with people who have been committing criminal acts in the communities?
Well, it could be truthful because whether we like it or not, all grievances or fightings are always, most of the time, are settled on the table. Mm. So there will be need for negotiation at certain point, but that will be done by the civil administration. And that will be done from the point of strength. It means that the military must be able to subdue the criminals to the extent that you can now, the civil authority can now have negotiation with them to find out what their grievances. And from the position of strength, because you subdue them, you can't do that. But that is left for the civil administration to organize that one, to see how you can sit down and negotiate with anybody who is causing problem. There's nothing wrong with that. But that is not for the military or the security agencies to get involved with. That is my belief.
Yeah, when you say the civil administration, who are you referring to in particular in Jos?
The state governments, not only in Jos, the state government, the federal government, there are negotiations going on across the country, we know, by the state governments and the federal governments to handle some of these issues. We're talking about, even at the international level, between Russia and Ukraine, we can see effort being made at the international level to get people to sit down and discuss. There's nothing wrong with that. But that has to be done by the civil component. That means the civil administration with a good political will to determine how best it is for the people.
Okay, General, let me ask you about the grievances, because, part of what we heard have caused conflict over the years. I mean, we always hear farmers, herders clashes, especially when it comes to conflict in north-central Nigeria. In Plateau State, there have been allegations of attempts to land grab, and it does appear that your report points to some of that. You spoke to historical grievances, competition for resources. How would you say that some of these things weigh when we hear them in the media? Which ones would you say were heaviest in terms of what the causes for?
It's the grazing system. Once you allow your cattle to graze into somebody's farm, there's every tendency that the farmer will grow annoyed that he has spent his time, energy, and money, some of them taking loans, to grow those farms. And then you bring your cattle to come and destroy them. Then he will go back and try to see how he can revenge, either by killing your cows. Then you can see the reprisal up and front that way. So that is one of the major problems. Then the second problem is the issue of land grabbing. Is when some of these militant groups or militia groups, they sack a community, they took over the ancestral home of those people and start building their own homes in those places. So we witness this in the Mangu, we witness this in Riom, in some part of Riom, and also in parts of Bassa and Bokos. So there's need to sit down. These real negotiations can come in. To sit down with these people. Why are you doing this? Why are you taking over people's ancestral home? Why are you sacking them? So these are the issues. It actually happened. We are told, both those that grabbed the land and the owners of the land, we spoke to them. And they told us the reason. Some of the land grabbers told us that they've been displaced from where they were before. So they have to look for a place to stay. So they have to displace other people. So you can see the cycle of events happening.
It's a very unfortunate.
We must develop the political.
It's a very unfortunate.
We must develop the political will to resolve it.
And the reason why I'm coming is because we just got a message from somebody in Plateau State. He says, good morning. He said terrorists have been attacking my community, Mushere. I just want you to speak to, I don't know where it is or if you have any details of this. He says they've been attacking my community, Mushere, since the 25th of May, 2025. And even last night, there was an attack. Can you speak to this? Are you aware of this situation?
Yes, I went to Mushere with my committee, and we saw the challenges of Mushere. That Mushere is very far from the towns in the Bokos local government area. One of the major problems is that the terrain around Mushere is very difficult for new operations. So, and the villages and communities are a bit far from town. So we find out when there's an incident, before the security agents will get to that place, it takes about 2-3 hours to get to the place. So it's difficult. And most of these attackers coming from areas around from Nasarawa State, the forests and high grounds around Nasarawa State, surrounding Nasarawa and Plateau State, they come over, do the attack and go back. So yes, they have been attacking Mushere for some time. I was in Mushere myself to see the damages done. And we spoke to the community leaders, and we also spoke to the security agencies to be able to beef up that area. But you find out that there are deficiencies in terms of boots on the ground for the military and other security agencies. That was why we advocated for technology, that we must develop technology to support the security agencies in doing their job so that we can have drones and other electronic equipment that can be able to dictate movements. But that, I haven't said that. That is not the solution to the problem. The solution to the problem is sitting down with people and saying, look, why are you doing this? Because for how long are we going to visit the military against all these things? So it's sitting down and let us sit down and ask ourselves, are we Nigerians? Why must we be killing ourselves? For how long will we be killing ourselves? What is the advantage of killing ourselves? What have we been gaining? We're supposed to be living in peace and allow the administrators of government to work and let us enjoy the benefit of democracy, not killing ourselves. It's not important. But you find out some of the fighters are imported from outside. Some come from Chad, some come from Nigeria, some come from outside states. When they're displaced in Nasarawa, some in Zamfara State or Katsina State, they move to some of these places. So we need to really check across Nigeria, what is the problem and how are we going to solve these problems? We also need to get the qualified and proper people that can manage some of these important appointments to be able to address the situation, not just bringing anybody. The role of the local government and traditional rulers is very important, very critical. Who are the local government channel? What are they doing? Are they staying in their local government areas or are they just globetrotting? These are the issues. If you are given an appointment, you must sit down and work. So there's need for the government to look into some of these things.
12,000 people really is a lot. And some people will say, look, this speaks to I don't want to use the word state failure, but I cannot find any other term. Because if the primary duty of the state is to provide the security and welfare of the people, we are not at war, at least not a war that has been declared, as you have said, just yet. And yet, in just one state, in some conflict here and there, we have lost 12,000 people. You say that it could even be more, that these are the people that are even documented, that the people who might not be documented and yet they died in some of these conflicts. How would you say that we now begin to, because some people will say there are a number of solutions we have been mulling in recent times, that we think that state police might be the way to go, but clearly there has been an absence of the state, and that's why in some of these conflicts, these many number of people have died. They have not been able to get protection from the state. Do you think that having state police might be one of the solutions?
We are structured in this country. The state governors don't have control over the security agencies, so to say. The security agencies take the instructions from their headquarters in Abuja and so. So I think the issue of state police will not be a bad idea, as long as it's properly managed, so that the governors can have some element of control over certain decisions that have to do with the security of their states. Because if there's a state police and properly managed, like I say, without using it to molest or harass people, our politicians are very funny, they can do so many things. So if that can be done properly, and then you have the state police, you have the federal police, then we can actually do something for that. Because the way it is now, the state governors are the chief secretary of the state without powers, without strength to do anything. They can't do anything. You can't even ask the GOC to do anything. It takes instruction from chief army staff or from chief of defense staff. That is where the country is structured. So it's not the fault of the military or the civil agencies or the governors. So something has to be done to challenge this issue, to find a way forward for it. That's my thinking about that. But I've stayed in Plateau State for some time. I was the theater commander here. And to be very sincere, this problem didn't start today. But I will tell you that this current administrator, the current governor, is doing so much. He's doing so much to improve the security situation in the state. He has done so much in terms of infrastructural development. He has done so much in carrying people along that I know, because we went around the villages and the communities and we spoke to people and they told us that the things are better. The only major challenge they have in this state is this issue of insecurity, which started long before this administration. But I assure you that for what I saw on the ground, both the security agencies and the administration is doing a lot to resolve these problems.
I heard the governor say that he was going, the report will get to Abuja, that he wants the president to see the report. I mean, I do not know that the president will have time to go through the voluminous report that was given and that was submitted by your committee. But because he needs to talk about synthesizing it as well, what are some of the key points that you would not want anyone watching at the federal level to miss?
So for instance, there's one major issue that cuts across the states where there are interferences from some leaders in Abuja. For instance, a criminal is arrested in Jos. Before his trial, you get information that he should be moved to Abuja. So these are the issues. So you don't even allow the criminal to be tried within the states where the crime has been committed. You ask him to come to Abuja. Then after some time, you find that the man is released. These are the issues. But critically, the federal government must come to the assistance of Plateau State in terms of providing technology for the military and the security agencies, in terms of reinforcing the logistics support for the military and security agencies. This is where the federal government will come in. The federal government will also come in to support the establishment of this ranching that I said about, set up ranching within the 3 senatorial zones so that people can do massive ranching, massive farming in the place. The lands are very fertile and very, very, very fantastic places. So the federal government has to do some of these things. The federal government has to also look at the criminal justice administration across all the states in the country. Because some of these laws have been over 30, 40, 50 years old. And they are no longer relevant to the modern times. So how can you, somebody is with a rifle, you arrest him with a rifle, and then you take him to court, and then he'll be given 10,000 naira fine, or 5 or 2 years in jail. He pays 10,000 naira, walk away. When I was STF commander, I experienced that. You arrest so many people, the police will charge them to court. Then they see the man strolling because he has been discharged. Because the law, the criminal is weak. It cannot handle such situations. So we need to review some of these things. These are some of the places that we actually think that the federal government can come in, do some intervention.
General Rogers, I want to be able to talk about that report again. Is there a timeline? Was there a stipulated timeline for these things to be done in that report?
No, like I said, the report contains, there are some that can be done immediately. There are some that can be done in the medium term, and some at long-term plans. It depends on how the state government has chosen to do the implementation. But if you want to implement them, there are critical ones that have to be done immediately. And then some has to be done with medium term, and then some have to be at long term, because some of these things too require financial backup from the federal government, because the state government alone cannot do some of these things.
I mean, what is the longest? How long do you think? What's the longest amount of time it take for some of these things to be sorted out? I know that they're short, medium, and long term. So in the long term, yes. I mean, are we talking about 2 years? Are we talking about 1 year? What are we looking at here?
We're talking about solving a problem that's over 2.5 decades. So you're talking about solving a problem of 2.5 decades. Take 50% of that time. It will take nothing less than 10 to 12 years to resolve some of these things. That's at the long time. Let me put it that way. At the long time, you can take 50% of the time. Because these things have been over for over 2.5 years, close to 30 years. So if we're talking about that, it will take almost about 15 years to see some of these things properly done. But in the interim, there are those that can be done immediately. The short term ones, the medium term, and the long term. So that is it. So the state government will decide how it wants it to be run, assisted by the federal government.
All right, General, we have to thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. We sincerely hope that it doesn't gather dust, as this report doesn't gather dust, as the governor has promised, and that peace, true peace and lasting peace, return to the people of Plateau State and maybe by extension, the rest of Nigeria. We have to thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Retired Major General Nicholas Rogers is the chairman of the Fact-Finding Committee on the incessant killings and destruction of property in Plateau State. Thank you once more.
Thank you very much.